everyone, it's Froggy, and I'm back again with another episode of Will a Wonderful World. So we've got some more mail here.
부처님, 나도 좀 도와줘요.
Key fob. Okay. Officer Minjun's home was very clean. On top of that, the Superior Investigation Agency and Unit 3 had been combing through this place for quite a few days, so it was very clean too. There were no other visitors anymore. Police tape was stretched across the door. The calendar in the living room was still on Wednesday's page. It was the day of his murder. It had already been 3 days since then. I remember that Minjun once mentioned that he didn't like those calendars that had Sunday as the first day of the week. He said that he always preferred Monday as the start of the week. To him, it represented a new beginning for our work. Although as police officers, we never really did enjoy and relax on the weekends. The bowls and dishes in the cabinets were all spotless and meticulously stacked. There weren't many clothes in the closet. I remembered every single one. A whole bunch of old DVD discs were stacked on the TV stand. All of them were military documentaries about wars and weapons. I walked around the whole apartment several times, but I couldn't find anything relevant to his personal connections. I lay down on the couch and stared at the ceiling that wasn't too high up, feeling like I had run into a dead end. According to Jigal Yom, Lieutenant Kang was definitely innocent, because they were drinking together at the time of Minjun's death. However, drinking with a gangster was not going to be a very convincing alibi for him. Besides, it might cause other unnecessary problems. At this point, the only way to prove Lieutenant Kang's innocence was to find the real murderer. I had also gotten some information about Officer Minjun himself from Jigal. Officer Minjun used to have a criminal record because he had been involved in a murder. For some reason, the case had been dropped, and there probably weren't any records of it either. At the very least, there had been nothing about this in the electronic records at the police station's archives. Of course, not many people knew about this at all. Moreover, Officer Minjun was not just a casual military and weapon aficionado. He had privately purchased lots of regulated and even banned weapons through multiple shady channels. His arsenal could probably arm a small team of special ops soldiers. However, Jigal had said that he wasn't sure if his special hobby was relevant to his death. The information that did have a direct connection to the case was in regards to surveillance tapes. All of the surveillance videos from near the apartment building on the day of the murder were gone. Therefore, it was very likely that Officer Minjun had been killed in his own home. Unfortunately, there hadn't been any witnesses who might have seen if he had any visitors that day. Overall, although I had gathered a lot of potentially valuable information, I still had no clue as to the true identity of the killer. And I was getting sleepier the more I thought about it. Just as I was falling asleep, I felt something on my butt. I put my hand on the back pocket of my pants and took out Officer Minjun's keys. There was a keychain fob that was in the shape of a telephone. I remembered the fob really well. No filters, okay? There were not many keys on the chain, but the fob, however, seemed way too big and inconvenient. I remembered that I had once been pouring some water for Officer Minjun while he was reading a new edition of Firearms Encyclopedia. I was peeking at the book over his shoulder when I accidentally spilled the water all over his desk. Officer Minjun immediately pulled out some napkins and started wiping his keys and the fob while cursing at me. He did not wipe the book first. Could it be? I went into the kitchen, found some flour, and sprinkled it on the fob. I shook it and then blew on it. It worked! 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. These were probably the most frequently used digits. I tried pushing them. The buttons on the fob could indeed be pressed. It looked like this could be a passcode to something. However, I didn't know what the passcode was for or what the passcode would be. Speaking of code, I could vaguely recall that Officer Minjun had once told me about a series of mystic numbers, which might have something to do with this. But I remembered that those mystic numbers had only 6 digits, but there were 7 potential digits here. Could it be that the passcode was changed often? I seem to recall that there were some relevant formulas. Officer Minjun had written those down for me while trying to explain how the mystical numbers were. Okay, regardless, I should give it a try. Let me think. The code was probably 1, 2, 8, 5, 7, 4. Nothing happened. No, I couldn't just try a random combination. There were too many possibilities. 6 digits, 6 digits. Why would there be one too many being pressed on the fob? I was certain that Officer Minjun had written the numbers down in the corner of the piece of paper that I had written my report on. Maybe I had written something else on it later? It was so long ago. I must have thrown it away. This was so frustrating. What on earth was the passcode? Cheng Junmin. Well, I guess we're gonna find out. Alright. Alright. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, just one. Yeah. Magic number. 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 5, 7. 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8. Backwards. 8, 7, 5, 4, 2, 1. Okay, well, it did something. Beep! Yay! I heard an electric beeping. But before I could figure out where the beeping had come from, the body mirror in the middle of the living room wall suddenly rotated by itself. It revealed a long and narrow tunnel behind it. I climbed into the tunnel and took a sharp right turn. At the end of the tunnel, there was a long and narrow room hidden between 2 walls barely wider than the tunnel itself. I entered the narrow space, and I was surrounded by stainless steel walls. It was lit by several daylight bulbs, which somehow gave the room a feeling of holiness. There were all kinds of hooks and shelves attached to the steel walls, while numerous firearms and grenades were placed upon them. There were a dozen AWMs? Even RPGs. What is... Okay. The AWM, Arctic Warfare Magnum, is a bolt-action sniper rifle manufactured by Accuracy International, designed for Magnum rifle cartridge chambering. It gradually became popular among various militaries and civilians after first being adopted by the British military. Its range is comparable to a 12.7mm rifle, with the size that is no larger than that of a 7.62mm rifle. It possesses high accuracy and is quite affordable. All of the above make it one of the most well-known weapons in the AW series. The AWM has also become an indispensable weapon in numerous FPS games. However, unlike its in-game counterpart that typically loads 10 bullets at a time, a real magazine of the AWM only has the capacity for 5. Neat! It was indeed an arsenal. Now I understood why Officer Minjun would always tell me that he would lend me a grenade. He hadn't been joking. Since I was the one in the possession of the fob, I assumed that no one in Unit 3 had found this place yet. Maybe there might be some clues in here. Most of the guns were covered with a little bit of dust, but the floor, on the other hand, seemed unusually clean. I kept walking back and forth in the room. I sat down, crouched down, even lay down, which is when I finally saw it. Next to the wall, opposite of the door, there was a small wooden table on which there were all kinds of firearm cleaning and maintenance tools. One of the table legs next to the wall seemed to have a slightly darker tip than the others. It looked like it had been covered with something dirty. I turned on the flashlight and pointed it at the table leg. It wasn't just dirty, it was blood. I could also see 2 small seams in the table leg where the bloodstain was. I reached out with my hand and touched the seams. The middle part between the seams suddenly sprang open. It was a secret slot with something inside of it. I took the item out of the slot. It was a recorder, and it was still recording. I pressed the stop button first, and then pressed play. Voices came out of the speaker. One of them was a familiar voice of Officer Minjun. "When are you going to stop bothering me? You think you could just hide from me by not coming to the station?" It was another familiar voice. My eyes opened wider. I stared at the recorder in my hand, and I couldn't believe my ears. Although it wasn't as loud and clear as it had usually been, there was no way I would have mistaken that voice. The second voice belonged to the lieutenant of Unit 3, Kim Jong-ho. "I have done enough for you. Everything is over now. I'll resign and go back to my hometown next week. You want to go home?" "Don't be ridiculous. Did you forget about your dirty little secret? Illegal possession of weapons is one thing, but being a murderer is another. You don't need me to tell you how many years you'll be spending in jail for manslaughter, do you? Are you going to blackmail me with that my entire life? You think I'm going to just let you do that? I have done so much dirty work for you, and you think I never kept my own evidence? Are you talking about this? How did you get that? How did you know where I hid them? Did you really think that I wouldn't know about your little tricks? I have my men trailing you 24/7. After all, you're just a pawn in my hands. I couldn't just let you wander around as you wished, now could I? You want to threaten me with just some tapes? You are so naive. Even without those tapes, I still have other ways. You have conspired with Ju Min-gyu and told me to murder Choi Yo-han's son during a mission, just to instigate a war between Choi and Lieutenant Kang, so that you and Ju could benefit from their losses. If I leaked this information to Musun Gang, I can guarantee that those people who are against Ju would want to take you out, and they don't need too much sound evidence. Oh, and speaking of Lieutenant Kang, if he ever learned about what you have done, he would never let you get away. I don't care if I will be sent to prison or not anymore. I want my conscience back, and I swear I will take you down with me. Well, that's really unfortunate. You weren't like this a few years ago when I first sent you to Unit 4. Back then, you were just a coward who didn't even dare to look me in the eyes when you were talking to me. I guess you've grown these past few years with Kang Bakya. What a shame. I will really miss you, kid, since I'll never see you again. As long as you let me go home, I swear I'll never tell anything to anyone else. I will have nothing to do with any of this anymore. I do believe that you won't tell anyone. I am very confident about that because dead men tell no tales. Then I heard the sound of a silenced gunfire, the sound of a body falling down, and a weak and brief groan. Neither voice said anything else. All I could hear was the sound of a door being opened and closed, as well as something being dragged through the floor. Those must be the sounds of Kim Jong-ho cleaning up the crime scene and taking Officer Minjun's body away. After that, the recording kept going for a long time, but there was no more sound at all. Officer Minjun must have started the recording via a remote control, but he was never able to stop it. I pressed the stop button again and stared at the dark red mark on the table leg. I could almost see how he struggled to paint the table leg with his own blood in the final moments of his life while avoiding being seen by Kim Jong-ho. I opened my clenched fist, and I gave him a salute. Okay, well, that one's good. Oh! I'm gonna do this in the next episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you want to see more videos from me, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.